Welcome to the Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D. We are not your average paranormal or metaphysical podcast. By bringing you a variety of guests weekly, we offer diversity. We challenge you to expand your mind and your horizons, ponder new questions and realities beyond the norm, new ways to communicate with the other side and beyond. Near-death, dream interpretators, psychics, all kinds of healers, Reiki masters, regressionists, animal communication, sound therapy, mental health, extraterrestrials, UFO, conspiracy theories, fairy and folklore, urban legends, angels and demons, occult, and of course ghosts and ghost hunting. That's just a few examples. We want you to ask questions to us and to our guests, but moreover, ask yourselves questions. Use your mind and your imagination to seek your own truth. We strive to help everyone, but not everyone is in need of the same type of assistance, hence the variety of guests. One show may not work for you, but the next one may, and so on. And we pray that our show will at least help one person, and if so, we say our job is done. By the way, if our show has helped you, be it through us, our oracle card reading shows, or our many wonderful guests, then please share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we thank you for all of your support. And now, enjoy the show, and welcome to the Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D.
Mama D.
Mama D dancing in the background. Okay, just in case anybody, I'm still in the process, people, of fixing up my office, so it looks kind of messy. If you don't like it,
Well, you know, that is what it is. Well, that was a new video that I made to just kind of
I like it.
enter. So just you guys, you know, let me know if you like it or not, or if it's meh or too much or whatever. You like it?
I like it.
Well,
Too bad.
because now we're going to have to play another video because I want to introduce you to our guest.
Yes.
We are going to be talking about the UFO Paradox tonight with Keith Thompson. And this is going to be very interesting because I admit I am not very well versed on all things alien and UFOs and whatnot, but I'm a believer. You know, I mean, I believe in all that.
I think that if you actually believe that we are the only sentient beings in the universe, yo, touch, because you know that they got to be more than just us. Mind you, when they drive past Earth, they probably lock in their doors and go, "We ain't going down there." What's going on?
All right. Well, anyway, let me play this video and get him on here, and I'm sure he's going to clear up a lot of stuff for us.
Yep.
This week in the Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, we have Keith Thompson. He is an author with such titles as Angels and Aliens, Leaving the Left, and the UFO Paradox. He is also an independent journalist, talk radio host, a former TV talk show host, and a former U.S. Senate staff member. His articles have appeared in the New York Times, Esquire, San Francisco Chronicle, Idaho Statesman, and the Pacific Sun. He lives in northern Florida, and he is here tonight to talk with us about his book, The UFO Paradox, The Celestial and Symbolic World of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. We welcome you, Keith, and everyone to the Fox Den.
Yeah. And we got Keith. And check the little aliens down below there.
Yep, and our little aliens picking up the box. But welcome to the Fox Den. And like I said, I'm really not that well versed on all the UFO stuff. Just the stuff, you know, that everybody knows, you know, the Roswell and this and that, you know, things like that matter. But your book, now again, people, I don't have the book in hand, so I had a PDF, so that meant I am like
She printed Palooza.
All kinds of things out that I'll be asking him about. So, I mean, I would love to be showing you pages in the book, but I'll have to get it. So I can do that later. But now your book is titled UFO Paradox, right? So what do you mean
what's the paradox?
Yeah. What do you mean by paradox? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the opening question. That's a good question. First of all, let me say that your very preparation, which seems to a lack of preparation. I mean, you haven't read the book, and you may not know. You haven't read all the book. You may not be well versed. Listen, trust me, that's actually a precondition to learning something new. I'm a big believer in what Suzuki Roshi, the Zen master, who wrote a beautiful book called Beginner's Mind. And his premise in that book was as follows: in the beginner's mind are many possibilities. In the expert's mind are few. Meaning, if you're a beginner, you come to class on the first day, and you don't know anything about what college is about, then you're ready. You're ready to learn. You have an open mind. You've got space. If you come with all the answers, if you're an expert,
Say, why are you there?
Why you're there, and there's no room to learn anything new. So beginner's mind, I began with this phenomenon knowing nothing about it, and
Okay.
so anyway, but that's nothing. So I just want to set you at ease. You don't
That's
have
gonna
to
be
meet
my second. Okay, because I did read. I mean, I did read. I just, it was on the computer, and I don't like doing that. It hurts my back. I don't like sitting in this chair. I need a new chair, and I like to have a book in hand and be comfortable reading downstairs in my room. But I mean, I read as much as I possibly could. I didn't make it all the way through the epilogue. That's what I didn't do. But I mean, your intro was huge, and your epilogue was huge. I was like, when is this going to start?
Exactly. You did some good work on the intro, though. I noticed you had, when you mentioned where I was published, you actually went in and you grabbed the banner headlines from each one of those I noticed Pacific Sun, which is a small weekly California newspaper where I cut my teeth as a journalist. I said, you've got their actual masthead. So good work there.
She did good. She does good work.
You got the banner headline for the New York Times and all of it. So good. I like that.
Well, you did it. You did all those things. I just put them up there that you did them. So,
you pointed her in the right direction, and she just went out and grabbed them.
Yeah. Okay. So now back to my question. So now I'm going to go from now. Now I'm going to make it 2 questions. What's the paradox? Right. And 2, when was your interest sparked? Now, I know when it was, but you're going to tell everybody.
Good.
All right. What happened? So go.
Okay. Well, good. We can dance around UFO paradox in various ways because there's a number of ways to talk about it. So that's not an avoidance. It's just to say that it will circle around to various paradoxes. One of them is the simple fact that this is a phenomenon. Let's set aside, we don't know where they're from. Are they extraterrestrial in the sense that movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they come from other star systems, or do they come from other dimensions?
Or is it us from the future, or is it? Right?
The past or the future, and some people refer to the ultra-terrestrial phenomenon. This may be a phenomenon that exists with us on Earth. They're very often saucers type. These craft are seen coming in and out of bodies of water. Well, Earth is 3/4 water. What if they're a aquatic phenomenon? So, but that aside, these phenomena.
Triangle, right? So I mean, it's endless questions. It's like, how do we get all these answers? But it's endless questions.
So, with one of the main questions is about the paradox, is that this is a phenomenon that makes itself known, manifests in sightings to ordinary people across the full range of experience, no particular background. They're credible witnesses to incredible events, to be sure. Remarkable events, the coming and going, the speeds, the trajectory. So that's the first piece. They appear to people, and then the agents of what I call the agents of official culture in science, official science, and you can tell my irony here. The experts in science and academia and mainstream media bring these witnesses on. On media, they generally ridicule them, make them look like unsophisticated rubes from the country, when sometimes they are people from the country. They don't have PhDs.
All right. Wait, I'm going to stop you right there. Hold the thought. Sure. Of course, the aliens are going to land in a rural place. What are they going to do? Come down and, Manhattan?
Times Square?
Come on, right? I mean, seriously, think about it. They're going to go where the less people are.
One thing Carl Sagan, the astronomer, said when he was interested in this, but he was also a skeptic. He liked to keep his distance so he would keep his credibility. And he famously said that, do you remember that accent, that billions and billions of stars, billions and billions in this universe? He said, why would they, you would think that if there really were aliens that were wanting to make contact with us, why would they make contact with these people driving home from bingo in Nebraska? You'd think they would seek out the astronomers and the professional scientists. When I heard that, I thought, why, Carl, you're feeling bad that you weren't invited to the party. They don't seek out, they don't seek out the professional scientists.
Now it's an issue.
Yeah, they don't seek out the professional scientists and the experts in the way that you think they would invite. They would hold a special, convene a powerful meeting, and you'd be one of the top dignitaries. Anyway, that's what I think is part of that's fascinating. So, ordinary people report these sightings around the world. The experts say it didn't happen. No, you didn't. Go home, people. Go back to your little lives. That right there is a paradox. And in that gap, there's a gap that opens up when there's when people make claims of remarkable things, and instead of being investigated, instead of showing curiosity, the response is to shut down the conversation by saying that happened, didn't happen, there's no way. And what that does is create a stalemate or deadlock. And what it does is push the phenomenon down underground. So the phenomenon lives a very vital underground symbolic life. You know, when an issue in a family isn't dealt with directly, we all have families, and there's a family secret sometimes that until it gets dealt with, maybe it was 3 generations before, the family secret 3 generations before will still pass itself down.
Oh yeah.
Continue to act itself out. We know from great literature, the great novels and so forth, that the family secret that wasn't dealt. So anytime that there's a refusal to be honest about a phenomenon, it goes sideways on us. We get weird, right? Things we're not allowed to talk about, but they're not formally said you can't talk about it. It's just, well, there's nothing going on here is the response that the experts say. And I found that interesting as a young, and that kind of takes me into the next question, if you want to go into it, how I came into this.
Yep. But now before you do that again, I'm going to say, I do this a lot, right? Shiny ball. Okay.
Yeah.
But, okay. Years and years and years ago, all right, I'm in the paranormal. She's in metaphysical. I'm in paranormal, right? Now, years and years and years ago, we didn't say that we were doing this because it was poo-pooed upon. You know what I mean? Like no, you know, okay, it's all right. You're a little touched. You know what I mean? So the same thing with UFOs, right? But now it's more mainstream, you know, for the paranormal's out everywhere. You know, and it's like, you know, paranormal and the psychics and all the, you know, with all the people in their near-death experiences, doing podcasts like this, getting the word out there, it's growing, right? So it's more accepted. Same thing I think is going on with the UFOs too, because now that, you know, some of the secrets are let out, and it's being talked about, and it's being actually, you know, NASA's unexplained files, all of those things, all of the UFO shows that have come out, all the secrets and the tidbits that come out. So it's like it getting more accepted now. It's still, people will say, you're a little touched. They say that to me, you're a little touched. All right. You know, it's like, all right, well, maybe I am. However, I have proof, you know, and you know, you got to say what you were just saying about how the people are degraded because of what they believe in, okay, publicly and such. How much never, ever, ever got reported?
Yeah.
You know, so we could be missing out on the biggest things because people didn't want to put themselves through it. Hi, Keith Bailey. How are you? Long time no see, sir. So, okay. So now that I said my little piece there,
I got 2 cents to add to that one. Remember you said that a gentleman's asked why are they going to the people down south, the hillbillies and whatever, instead of the scientists and the astronomers and all the people that know. And I think my opinion is that the people that know ask you to prove it. They like, prove it to me. Whereas regular Joe Schmo like me, I'd be like, yo, okay, you want to steal my husband? Go for it. Leave me what I am. We're more open-minded to it than you don't have to prove stuff to us. Whereas the people who are experts, you got to prove it to them. So that's my 2 cents as to why they don't go to all the big hoity-schmoities.
Well, I think that's a good point. I used to think for a while that the that the experts were the ones that were they were playing the role of gatekeepers and keeping us dealing with this. Well, on one level, that's true. I think we're getting closer now to sort of dealing with it as a societal issue. There are universities, there are scholars who are willing to put themselves on the line now. Can talk about that a little later in the show, who are willing to hold conferences and saying, you don't have to come with a belief. You come with an open mind. We are academics, but I've come to rethink a little bit of that in this sense. I now not only no longer subscribe to the idea that the refusal of scientists and so forth is a problem. It's actually that this phenomenon almost may be intentionally more democratic than we realize. It's making direct connection with people who there's a kind of rite of passage perhaps going on, an initiation. I'm not saying initiation into any certain set of beliefs, but if this phenomenon is doing what it appears to be, it's introducing us to a larger sense of reality. And what that's doing is bypassing ordinary religion. You don't hear this topic discussed in most church sermons. There might be a few that do take it on. Most scientific conferences don't deal with this. There's often a lot of ridicule in scientific conferences, as I've said. So it's as if it bypasses these institutions in order to grow new institutions or a new awareness. So if that's the case, how ideal it would be that it doesn't matter that Carl Sagan or Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is now the astrophysicist who often appears as the main debunker on the news shows. They bring him on and he poo-poos it all. So, and I'm not saying that we need to believe anything. I'm not saying there's not a room for genuine skepticism is good, right? I mean, it's a valuable thing. Ask hard questions, but the automatic response that I call the debunker response is kind of toxic skepticism. It didn't happen, couldn't have happened. The laws of nature are, well, first of all, we don't know that the laws of nature are fixed. There was a scientist in Italy, an astronomer named Galileo, and he had the misfortune to report publicly that I've done the calculations, I've used my telescope, and I've determined the Earth orbits the sun, not the other way around. Well, guess what? He got a knock on the door, and it was from the Vatican, who had been making all the decisions about reality and performing the role of a scientist. And they said, wait a minute, you can't say that. The Earth doesn't revolve around the sun. He said, well, look through my telescope. You see for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. They said, we're not going to look through your telescope. We're telling you not to say it. We're placing you under house arrest. Well, nowadays, the debunkers are not the religious figures. Very often the people in the name of science that Galileo once was trying to represent.
It's insane, isn't it? Fear. It's fear-based. Everything is fear. Like, no, we've been taught this. You can't veer from that, because then we'll have to change everything. Then what? Oh my God, we have to rewrite all the textbooks, all this, all that. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right? And it's like, and then it trickles down to everywhere, so they don't want to change all that. They really don't. Whether it's true or not. But the bullying part of it, I do not appreciate. And that's everywhere, though. That's on any kind of topic. If they don't.
It's what you said, doing metaphysics and paranormal stuff. I can tell you for myself that a lot of people who are experiencers, including people who have psychic experiences, telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, they have precognitive dreams that come true on a regular basis. They dare tell the wrong person about that in their life. Maybe it's a person who wears a collar in the religious institution. And I'm not saying everybody in religious institutions is dogmatic, but very often telling your larger truth, your deepest truth to the wrong people can result in you're being shut down. And so, absolutely, that kind of bullying, ridicule is not part of the scientific method, but it's part of the human condition. And it's important to seek out people that I often say when people ask, well, you've been around this long enough, you've researched it. If I've had an encounter with this phenomenon, should I go public with it? And my response has come to be, you should go public to someone, but not to everyone. You don't want to hold a news conference. Don't necessarily write a book. because
choose
you will
them.
have people, you'll have reporters at your doorstep. You'll have a lot of ridicule. You'll have
Mhm.
people mocking. Do you remember Field of Dreams? He got the movie
Yes.
Field of Dreams. He,
Yep.
some voice to him said, "If you build it,
Build it,
he
they will
will come." And he
Yep.
concluded, based on a deep intuition that made no sense. It
Mhm.
made no sense that he was to plow his corn under and build a field, baseball field. And there's that scene when all the neighbors, all the nosy neighbors, what the heck has gone wrong with him?
Mhm.
He's
All
mowing through
Plates
his
and
crop.
everything. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So tell a
that
wise
was
person, tell
great
your
movie.
truth. Tell your secrets to someone who shares secret knowledge themselves, and share it with a friend who understands you and who might say, I don't know what you've been through, but you're not a crazy person. You say you had this encounter, etc. But share it with someone. I do
Yeah.
advocate that, because keeping to yourself a secret that has to do with a sense of reality. You know, we live in reality. We don't want to have to shut off the reality. But so tell someone, but be prepared to remember that there will be the wrong
This
people
is
sometimes.
this is a good thing here too, because she says, I wonder how many are institutionalized in America now for sharing that news. You know, it's true. It's true.
Mhm.
As opposed to you getting, and think of way back, not even now today, but way back when all this stuff was coming out in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. How many people do they lock up saying that you're nuts? You didn't see aliens. We're going to, if you don't stop it, we're going to put you away in an institution. Because they put people away in institutions for everything under the sun.
Mhm.
That would be definitely a huge one.
Well, we're living in a time now where we're routinely medicating school children. I don't want to go down into a different topic, but medication, psychiatric medication, did not used to be the go-to approach for especially
Right.
boys. Boys don't like to sit down in classes. Have you noticed? They don't
Hang
like to
on,
sit down
they-
anywhere. And girls too don't like to sit down. That's not how we learned. We have the genes of people who were raised in fields working.
Mhm.
We learned by working. Now we're all cramped in these school. So we misbehave, and they give us Ritalin. So yeah, there's we can't medicate away the human condition. Sorry, we can't medicate away larger realities. It won't work.
Try,
Amen.
but it's not going to
Amen.
work.
Amen. That's so true. It's so true. So now that we have danced around every other subject and almost used the whole half hour of our time, when did you first?
What
Sixth
Okay, well,
grade, the sixth grade. What
yeah.
happened?
I was in the sixth grade. It was my turn, age 12, to give a current events report in class. We took turns with this. Maybe it was once a week throughout the school year. Maybe we repeated. It was my turn. I knew it was coming up. And I grew up in Northwest Ohio, just south of Michigan. And in Ann Arbor, Michigan at that time, there was a spectacular UFO sighting. I had no understanding or education or interest in UFOs going in. It was at that point, it was still fairly new, but it was a time when the national news would cover these events on a regular basis. So for a 4-day period, there was a sighting in the Ann Arbor region of Michigan that involved extraordinary lights and apparent craft and interactions with people. So I cut out all the articles from the newspaper, and it was my turn. So I reported on this event in class.
Okay.
And what was an important part of the sighting was an Air Force consultant named J. Allen Hynek. The Air Force had brought this astronomer into their investigations. He flew in to sort of address the problem and to reassure the people and to investigate it. So he did some research. He was driven around the area. He talked to witnesses, and he was taken to one part of town where there was a swampy area. And he was told that there were lights that had been emerging near the swamp, luminescent material, sort of like phosphorescence around oceans. You see the blue lights in oceans around shorelines.
Pick it on the sand.
Yeah, beautiful. So it was time for him to give a news conference after he'd done all his investigation. And reporters from all over the country lined up, listening to his every word with their notepads and tape recorders. And he said, I just want to address the one area of the town out near the swamp. It is possible, he said. It is possible, could be, might be swamp gas
Yes.
in that particular sighting. Well, he was mortified to find that when he said the phrase swamp gas, all the reporters jumped up as if the news conference was over, ran to outside to the telephones, to payphones, and began to call the news bureaus and said, Air Force dismisses it all as swamp gas, which is not what he did. They didn't hear the second part, the larger part. So I noticed that he was thought to have explained it all away as swamp gas, even at 12 years old. And I knew the backstory that he said, no, I didn't say it was all that, but I understood this is a very slippery phenomenon. And so anyway, in my classroom, I had a very powerful experience that encouraged me to stay at this. So let me share what that was. After telling about what had happened in Michigan, one of the students, it was question and answer time. One of them said, well, so Keith, do you think there are aliens from outer space? And I was kind of actually thrown by the question because I was focusing on observations that people were had, and I hadn't reached any interpretation myself. But I did say, I said, well, some people believe it's from outer space. Well, do you? I said, no, I've not reached that conclusion yet. I don't know if I made it sound that fancy, articulate. I was only 12 years old, but I basically kind of pushed back and said, I haven't concluded that yet. And somebody else said, well, then what do you think they saw? A good question. What do you think they saw? And I shot back with, I don't know. And the truth is, I wasn't punting the ball. I wasn't dodging the question. I didn't know, but I did say, but it sure doesn't sound like they saw swamp gas. The descriptions of the light. At that point, my teacher, really sweet lady named Mrs. Lowry, she came up and stood next to me. She might have put her hand on my shoulder, a good supportive teacher. She said, what I think Keith is trying to tell us with something like this, it's important to keep an open mind and ask relevant questions. And then she turned to me and she said, and often the way teachers will address a student by their full name, she said, Mr. Thompson, that was a very good report. You have the makings of a scientist or a detective or a reporter. Follow the evidence wherever it leads you. I just want to say how lucky I was, because many of us have that experience of a teacher in grade school who not only doesn't bring out the best in us, they convey to you that you're stupid, that you don't belong here, that you have nothing to offer. I never had that. I do know many people have had that, especially for reasons other than, teachers are not always well-balanced people. They're not happy people.
No, they're people. They're people. People are not perfect.
They have bad days at home too. So in any case, I got a kind of a blessing that day. I write about it in the book as a kind of benediction. That here I was, a 12-year-old who was kind of gifted in terms of, I loved watching the news, and I felt that maybe I would be a reporter someday. I went on to become a writer. My family encouraged me to, follow my interests. So I did go on to become a writer. But my teachers gave me a kind of a benediction or a blessing that day to follow the evidence wherever it leads has always been kind of a motto for me. So that said, I continued to pay attention to this. I didn't declare that I was a UFO investigator or anything formal like that, and I didn't join the UFO research movement, but I continued to study the cases and follow the evidence, including as it began to lead into the paranormal, which brings us to the kind of things there is a consistent dimension of the UFO phenomenon that involves paranormal features. And interestingly, many of the mainstream researchers who hope it's all something simple like nuts and bolts and just spaceship, they don't like the paranormal stuff because it's too weird, it's too messy, it's too philosophical.
Gina, weird? Oh, maybe. Gina, no.
With that in mind, I'm a guy who I didn't set out to follow the paranormal dimensions of this. I set out to follow all the dimensions that seem to be part of it, and it includes the paranormal. And I've also had my own experiences with non-ordinary phenomena, and I decided to bring those into the book as well. I had learned to keep a distance. In my first book, Angels and Aliens, I dealt with the subject by never really referring to my own experience. I thought I want to be the kind of journalist who is objective and who doesn't use the first person. Not that you can't use the first person, but journalism, you can read an article today about politics. Yeah, you don't reveal your own view. If you're a political journalist, you don't directly reveal your own political bias. If you do,
unlike what they're doing now.
If you do, then you end up on the commentary page and you become an opinion writer. And that's valuable too. So I decided in this book I was going to blend journalism and do some full-blown disclosure about my own experiences, because I wanted to, frankly, it just occurred, well, more than occurred to me, some part of me came forward, some sort of inner teaching, and said, you're at a point in your life, you don't need to establish your objectivity. You can be objective about your own experience. So I really got a go ahead from my inner truth to say, bring in your own experience. You will be more useful to people if they hear that you're not just the expert about their experience, which, by the way, I'm not the expert on anybody's experience, including my own, because I'm a learner as well. But I did bring in my own experience with sort of mystical awareness as a child that I felt was more real than real. You know,
Yep.
those moments when you see behind the curtain and you say, wow, there's a much bigger game being played here. And then later on I had, and I don't want to go into it right now, but if you want to go down that road, in my 20s, I had a near-death experience before the near-death experience was on the map, before the stages had been made famous by Oprah.
Yep.
So I had the fortune or misfortune of having a near-death experience, all the stages, including the tunnel and the life review, but I didn't know it was real. And I told people I had died and come back. They told me I needed very serious therapy, because that happened.
Mine
so
was like 40
I'm
years.
among those who had an experience. Now, very soon, I learned after my near-death experience, I began to investigate, and Oprah began to make it famous, and the researchers began to talk about discovering the patients had come back from surgery and overhear the doctor in the they leave their body during surgery and they go to heaven, if you will, or what they consider to be heaven, and they come back. And when the doctor says, well, now that you're back, now that you're conscious, let me tell you the prognosis. And the patient says, I already know the prognosis. I heard you talking to Dr. Jones in the other wing of the hospital this morning. You were eating a tuna sandwich, and by the way you spilled it, that's what that dot is on your tie. And the doctor said, what are you talking? How do you know any of that?
Yep.
Well, then she said, I saw you. I went out of my body and I saw you in the other part of the hospital. Of course, I didn't overhear you with my ear. And so the best researchers in the near-death phenomena are the formerly skeptical doctors whose patients told them things that turned out to be true based on psychic information. So we're living in a time when more of the authorities are opening up to this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After my NDE, that's when I hear spirits. If it's spirits, in the room with me, I hear these tones. So I have 3 distinct tones: low, medium, and high. If it's low, it's a little nervous. It's not such a great thing. Medium and high, they're perfectly fine. So Ms. Odell says, okay, first, they can't accept that non-terrestrial life could be like us, and now they have trouble accepting any other type of life. And that's when you say they, who do you mean by they? Hello, David, long time no see. Welcome back. So that was, no one wants to accept anything else because you have to change everything. It's fear. It's fear-based everything.
But I think that happens with everything.
Everything.
Like you said, the people who thought that you had near the spirit said that you need some therapy. Be nice about that one. I mean, witchcraft and healers and paranormal. Paranormal. No, here we go. Everything started somewhere with somebody thinking, y'all are a little touched in the head, and I'm like, yeah, but that's the only way to be a little bit touched, because that makes you open to different experiences, different possibilities.
Yeah, questions.
Absolutely. Those are I mean, we're having a great conversation here. I mean, we're just sort of all of us chiming in. These are things I talk about. I talked about how I learned at first. I remember when it was a near drowning experience, and nothing to do with UFOs. So people say, why did you bring this into your book? I said, again, because it's part of a larger pattern. I connect in that sense. The near-death experience and the UFO experience both involve beings, usually. The aliens, aliens, wherever they're from, in these abductions and the direct close encounters, there are non-human, they're humanoid alien type figures. And in the near-death experience, very often people seem to go to a realm like heaven, like the afterlife. They see relatives, they see deceased relatives who seem to be ready to take them beyond a point. There is usually a point beyond which the person knows that if they cross, they won't be coming back. And it's at that point, there's a life review. There's a whole lot of stuff. But in any case, you come back with those kind of reports, and now there's openness to it.
Levels. Yep. As you're going, even on your and near death experience, it's like you're going through the levels. You're floating your way to that first doorway, that first entry, that first waiting room, the first judgment room, the first whatever you want to call it, and then you go on from there and go on from there and go on from there, and then it's your choice. Like there's a place that you can come back here. So there are ghosts, like that's a ghost and a spirit. Right? So a ghost is someone that dies and refuses to go over there because I can't go over there because I did all these wrong things over here, holding on to human emotion, the human condition. But once you do cross over, you can still come back. That's what my job comes in. I try to explain this to the spirits that are acting up in people's homes. No, you can go back and you can come back once you go over. Go cross over, meet all those people, meet the extraterrestrials, the beings, the light people, anything else you want to meet over there. Learn, you can come back, and now you can be a teacher. And now you're not going to be bound by human emotions.
Well, and that's, again, you just summarized my own thing. I don't see myself as a teacher per se, but guess what? What am I doing? I'm a writer. I'm an author. So I teach through my writing. I'm not saying I have direct any divine anything whispering in my ear telling me what to do. I just have a sense of a call that has opened up in me. I had an experience when I realized I was leaving. I had never read anything about the near-death experience or out of body experience. I would not. The phrase out of body experience during my childhood would have not revealed anything to me. Out of body experience. What is that? I didn't know what it referred to. So this is a near drowning experience. I was body surfing with friends in the ocean, got caught by riptides. My friends were better at it than I was, and the riptides are very powerful. So it was a near drowning experience. And there was a moment in which I said, I realized I was going to die. I'd done my best to get back to shore, and the equation had shifted totally. And I was crashed by a very big wave. And then I began to come up. I said, I'm coming up from the bottom, I guess. What I was doing was rising up, and I was leaving my body. I left my body through the back of my head. And the awareness of I was that which was observing leaving the body. I saw the body of Keith, and I had the instantaneous recognition. I said, well, I'm Keith, and that's Keith's body. So Keith's body is not Keith. The awareness of Keith is not identical to the body. Sometimes it's in the body and seems to be driving the car, as it were, but it's not. Consciousness is not defined by the brain. I didn't think all of that at the time. I simply said, then I saw my friends on the shore, desperate for me to survive. They were talking to the body. I was looking at the body. Awareness saw the body, saw the whole situation. And I remember the phrase, dead isn't dead. I'm dead, but I'm not dead. Keith is not going to survive as Keith. That's what I thought. And there was no fear. There was no terror. The terror had left. There's nothing quite like going through a process where every sinew in your being is devoted to surviving. The mind-body unit in the middle of the ocean is desperately trying to cling on to, does not want to die. That's the worst case. That's
what brought me back. Because I was so confused when it was happening to me. I had no idea. I was so confused. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I'm dying. And then I'm trying to speak and no sound is coming out. And then I'm like, I don't want to die. And then I finally screamed it, I don't want to die. And then I slammed back into my body. And it was a big force too. And I had a broken collarbone at the time, so it was very painful. But that's why I died, as I OD'd on pain pills. I've never felt such pain. It was this pain on that. And I didn't do it on purpose. It was an accidental thing, but I threw all the pills away after that, I dropped it out from that point on, but that's exactly what happened. It's like, I just said, I don't want to die, but I screamed it furiously and slammed back into my body.
Well, in that space of seeing it all, and I said, dead isn't dead. And I felt what many people do, what is often described, not universally, but I felt a peace and tranquility and acceptance that bring it on. I mean, I felt sort of at home. And at the same time, my friends on the shore, including a dear friend named Mary, I heard her voice speaking to one of our other friends. We were all on a group vacation together in Hawaii. And she said to our friend Moore, she said, "Why didn't he listen?" Referring to Keith, out there flailing in the ocean. Still, apparently, you know, I don't remember.
Yeah,
For all intents and purposes, I was wrong. Why didn't he listen? I told him not to go out there. I told him the waves were too dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. So from that vantage point of seemingly infinity, I heard her and I said, "I'm fine. I'm okay. This is all okay. You're okay. I won't be back in the way that you think." She didn't hear me. So I thought, okay, I hear them, but this consciousness is not present to them. Okay. Yeah. Then I went through the process of life review and interactions. The funny thing is that I don't remember how I came back. I just know that there came a point when I was seeing through my eyes again, that I was in the body. I was in a cove. I had been carried out of the waves into a fairly sheltered area, and on both sides of me were two dolphins. I had a very lucid awareness of dolphins bringing me in. And at this point, I thought, I've just gone from the person who was struggling desperately to survive as an individual to feeling the boundary between individual and cosmos disappear. So I had suddenly become what seemed like the entire cosmos. Now I'm back in the body again with two dolphins, and my friends are pulling me ashore, helping me. How badly are you hurt? And the first thing I said to them, I was very lucid, very conscious. My awareness was so open. I said, "Did you see all that?" And what I was referring to was the infinity.
Everything that you did, yeah.
Did we all go through this? They said, "Go through what?" And I said, "Did you?" And it was, you know, and I knew that I was conveying to them that I must be delirious because I was speechless. One of them said, "Keith," he came and put his arms around my buddy. He said, "We thought you had given it up out there." And I said, "Oh, you understand." I did. I went to death. I was dead, and I came back. They didn't know about the near-death experience either, as a phenomenon. The look they gave me, I was so clear. "Keith, if you keep talking about this, these are your friends, but they will declare you to be delirious. You are not making sense." And you know, that served me well, because ever since then, I developed a sixth sense, where when people didn't understand my deeper truth, my truth didn't depend on their approval.
Yeah. No. Oh, 100% no. No. That's when I decided to, you know, go forth in the paranormal and pursue my dream. I knew it was real. I knew all the things that happened to me. And I just said, you know, I don't care what you people think. I don't, because this is where my heart lies. This is where my truth is. That's what I'm going to do, you know? So everyone needs to seek their own truth. That's why I put that in that video. Use your imagination, seek your own truth.
Exactly. You have to be honest with yourself and what other people's reactions to what you say, what you do. That's their choice. That's their reaction. It's not yours. It has nothing to do with you. Unfortunately, there are some people who, like you said, bullies who try and make you feel like you're loopier than me, you know, but it's like, no. You know, I had, when I first came out of my spiritual closet, I had somebody say to me, "Oh, I hear you're a medium." And they said it sarcastically. And I was like, "No, I'm like a 2X or something like that." No. I don't. It just depends on how people perceive you. And if it's their choice to believe you, great. If they choose not to, that's their choice. Doesn't matter. It should not stop you from being honest with who you are for yourself.
Well, I developed a sixth sense seeking out people who likewise were in on some kind of secret, who were in on it, who had also learned to keep to themselves. So I've developed an ability to meet people and know people who I could see when they're in transition and they're really struggling with a reality. And it's not any great anything I've developed. It's just what comes through. It's just this capacity to assure them that they're precisely where they need to be, and that there's this is a safe world. Being is safe. And I have to say, this taught me it led me to, in the wake of this experience, I developed an interest in spirituality, took up meditation, read the great books by Alan Watts and many of the other spiritual philosophers of our time, and developed an interest in human potential, went on retreats, did meditation retreats. So I learned to find, I went on a quest, if you will, to explore this reality. I never, and I also must say that when I came back from the near-death experience, by the way, let me say to readers potentially, this is not primarily a book about me. We're just going deeply into my own experience. Right. But this is about the UFO phenomenon, and my own experience along these lines is really a relatively small part of the book. So don't buy the book thinking you're going to get a full-blown account of.
No. This is not Keith. This isn't Keith and Keith's life on steroids. No, this I asked him, at the beginning, how did this start for him? And then it trickles into all these things matter. They make you. They made you do this to write this.
Exactly.
Book. So
I brought everything I am to this book, and it includes that. And that's what part of my message is really to the reader is, whatever you do with my book, open to your own truth. Follow your own call. I define the UFO phenomenon, stepping back a bit to the subject. I call it a call from the cosmos. The UFO experiences, like near-death experiences, like paranormal, psychic, and so forth experiences, are spiritual emergencies. They are calls to us to open to something larger. And so it tends to send, we each then have to internalize that call. When we get a call, as Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, said in his writing on the hero's journey, when you are called on a journey to ask the deep questions, there's a calling, and the call will make demands of you. You will be tested. You will be challenged, but that's part of it. Anybody who wants a spiritual experience and wants all roses and daisies, you're in the wrong search. You're on the wrong path. Now, you might find roses and daisies, but if that's what you want, you'll get something before the roses and daisies. You'll get some hard experiences. So don't expect that spirituality is a shortcut to bliss. You may get to bliss every now and then, but it'll be the bliss of having gone through the dark parts of your life and going through them consciously. The bottom line is we all have dark times in life. There's only two responses: open to it or shut it down. I understand we don't want difficulty. We don't want pain and suffering, but the pain and suffering get worse when we shut it out.
Yes.
So you got to internalize the opening. You say, okay, I'm going through hard times right now. Ask the question, what's the universe trying to show me? It may not. Just ask that as a question, because that right there will back you up a little bit into, okay, you might provide the opportunity for the cosmos to whisper in your ear. Here's what this is about. You've been doing this for lifetimes. Do you want to keep this up?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, that's a whole show in a nutshell right there. All right, because I could go on and on. But Ms. Odell again says, are you aware of the CE5 method, Stephen Greer,
yes,
of contacting or attracting alien entities? Is this something you've tried or experienced? Yes, all of these things are in the book.
Yeah, and let me give you, there's an opportunity with that great question. Thank you for just defining we all know about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, because that's what the famous movie was about. Yeah. So let's do briefly summarize what the 5 kinds of close encounters are. Close encounters of the first kind. This was the phrase that Dr. Hynek from the Air Force developed. CE1, close encounters of the first kind, are when you see a light or an object in the sky 500 feet or so above. So that's the classic aerial sighting. You saw a UFO. Close encounter of the second kind is when it comes down close enough to, it might land, when they break some branches of a tree, ground indentations, is picked up on radar, and so forth. Close encounters of the third kind is when beings are seen outside the craft, and humans interact with beings. Close encounters of the fourth kind are the abductions. The beings take human beings, not on a volunteer basis, most often. And it's not a pleasant experience most often. And then close encounters of the fifth kind. is the next level. You don't necessarily go through all these yourself, but they are the 5 categories. Yeah, CE5 are the experiences where people go out in groups, sometimes with a guide, someone who's trained in the protocols of how to call them in. I haven't done it myself. I can't say why. I've never really been drawn to. I think maybe because I've had sufficient experiences. I've never been invited onto one. And you can do it yourself. You know, you can go out onto the hills and sort of ask for a sighting, ask for a visitation, ask for contact. It doesn't mean you're going to get necessarily something that would blow your socks off. But the answer is yes. There is something about reaching out to reaching out to the consciousness of the phenomenon using our own consciousness has brought in some remarkable results, according to particular researchers who I do talk about this in the book.
Yeah, yes, you do. In extensive, there's a lot in this book. Okay, the very first part of it, like I said, the introduction is very long, and there's a lot of information in that. When he really starts getting into the book, too, he is explaining so many things. He's doing a ton of name dropping. He did so much name dropping that I will never remember all those names. I would have to read the book 500 times to remember.
Well, and my approach in doing my reason for doing that, Gina, was that I felt part of my duty here was, especially the new people coming to the phenomenon, I wanted to provide some history. I know that a lot of readers don't care about the history, and that's okay. I didn't make it entirely a history book, but I wanted to bring in some of the big names. Dr. John Mack of Harvard, who got interested in the alien abduction phenomenon, paid a big price because Harvard nearly tried to hound him out, which is the classic, just like the Vatican came to tell Galileo, stop talking about the skies, stop saying the wrong things about the sky, which were really the correct things. Well, in any case, I wanted to bring some of these people back. I don't want to lose the lineages. I think it's important. So I bring some history in, but you can read my book. You don't have to know the names. Some of the great sightings, like the Pascagoula, Mississippi sighting.
When you're really researching and you're really learning and everything, this is a great book because you do have a lot of references. So you can take that, jot the name down over here. Yes, I want to look this up. Yes, I want to look this up. Yes, I want to look that up. You know, like for me, I mean, I got to read these books so I can have this interview with you, you know. So when I want to further get into it, then I go back, and that's why I print out your charts. I print out.
You can read it in a different way. Preparing for an interview, I've done enough interviews myself as a host when I get the 10 questions or the 20 questions, and I maybe don't have time to read the book entirely. I just end up saying, okay, I'm going to talk with this reporter, this writer, and try to draw out their work. And then later I'll read the book on the beach. You know, there's beach reading, and then there's reading you do for an interview, and then there's, I'm not sure my book will be a beach book, but who knows?
Yeah, but now you have a different insight too. Like a lot of times I like reading the book after or reading it again, you know, after having the interview, because now I understand a little bit, you know, more about the author, what was their motivation, why did you write this, and then now I'm looking at it in a different light, you know, because some things won't make sense to me, and you're making light of a lot of things already, you know, because this is your field, it's your genre. You know, so I mean, it's all relative. It all fits. It's perfect. It fits. But I get a question though. What boggles me is why, if it for so long it's all UFOs and now it's UAPs. I mean, why change that?
Well, it was so here's what happened in 2017. Some good reporters, Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal and Helene Johnson, I believe. I may have her name wrong. I try to get them correct. But 3 first-rate American journalists got on the case, and they were people who had studied this phenomenon in their various ways and written about it, which takes a lot of courage for people at the New York Times level to take on these kind of stories. So they wrote a story about the secret government organization within the Pentagon that had been exploring UFOs, despite the fact that for 8 decades, the response from the military and the government, the Pentagon and so forth had been, there's nothing going on. These are all ordinary sightings, misidentifications. Many of them are hoaxes. Move along, people. Go back to your lives. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But it turns out our government had a secret, or an undisclosed, not classified, a division that was tracking and trying to understand this phenomenon. So this was made public, And it was also revealed that the government had rechristened, changed the name, because the term UFO phenomenon, UFO, had almost become synonymous with flying saucers and little green men. So they decided, let's call it unidentified aerial phenomena. I don't know why they settled on that, but I feel the same way. In the book, I say I'm from the old school. I think some of these new initials, UAP, doesn't bring any additional clarity. It's just more of a bureaucratic type phrase. But it does refer to the fact that now the government is on record as acknowledging that there are officially unidentified sightings. So officially now that the phenomenon is real, UFOs are real. There's a percentage that are undefined. That doesn't mean the government has come out to say or to admit that we're in touch with extraterrestrials. That part hasn't been reached. But there are some who believe that is the best hypothesis. Others believe the idea that they come from other dimensions, like parallel reality, almost like poltergeists that come in and then they go back out.
Right. But you bring up like reverse engineering, things like that. But I mean, I think like there's been pretty big jumps in our technological advances here and there. And I think it's always around some kind of a UFO thing. So I think we're stealing some technology. Like all of a sudden, it's not like a normal path that you would see, okay, well, we experiment with this and the transistors and the this and the this and the this. And all of a sudden you got microwaves. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, what happened? You know what I mean?
There appear to be big leaps. We don't see the intervening step. So the question is, have we in fact recovered saucers? Have we back engineered them? And by the way, one of the most interesting stories, one that I had nothing to do with breaking, but a ex-Air Force intelligence agent, official, I should say, named David Grush, as you may know, came out about a year ago to say, I have delved into this deeply. I followed the leads that I had using all my intelligence access that I had. I have come to as far as I can get with this. And I've met with people who say either they or others they know are involved with back engineering recovered spacecraft, and they are in possession also of what Grush called biologics. I mean, it's a sort of a strange term for biological material. In other words, he was asked by Joe Rogan, do you mean dead alien? He said, yeah, these things have to have pilots, and when they don't survive, they're dead. So anyway, he says, look, I don't know this myself. I have come as far as I can, but I have given the names and dates and places of where this stuff is to the Inspector General of the intelligence community. And he claims that the stuff has very likely been offloaded onto the aerospace corporations like McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin and such groups that they have almost revolving doors with government. So the government can legitimately claim we don't have this, but the aerospace companies have it. That's what. So anyway, Grush has provided names. The Inspector General has been listening to the whistleblowers. So maybe at last we are on the verge finally of something like some basic disclosure. But until then, it's all rumor. It falls short of, and that's what keeps the phenomenon alive and makes it possible for people to still maintain there's nothing at all going on. That is accurate either.
Now you're in Florida. Isn't MUFON based in Florida?
Well, I don't know where their actual headquarters is, whether it is Florida. MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, is a U.S., maybe it's even global organization with chapters, with UFO researchers that have protocols they follow. You get a training if you want to go the MUFON the route. I'm an investigative journalist rather than an investigative field worker, so I haven't followed that particular path of. But there are people, if MUFON gets a phone call, somebody says, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is what I saw. And the MUFON says, well, we've got some other sightings there too. We'll put you in touch with our Nashville, guy. And someone will come out with a tape recorder. They'll do good research. And so there's a lot of stuff that's in the archives now. This is a very well-researched phenomenon to be still pretty much officially non-existent. Only barely does it exist.
Exactly. Yeah, you keep saying that as it's finally going to come out. It's finally going to come out. It's finally going to come out. But I do want to ask you about the Rockefeller, the whole incident, the whole story with Rockefeller, Bill Clinton, the administration, the whole thing. That to me, I was no idea.
After I published my book, Leaving Angels and Aliens, I got a call one day, and it was from the office of Lawrence Rockefeller. Now, I knew Lawrence Rockefeller. He was one of the grandchildren of John D. Big Rockefeller. I knew of him as the Rockefeller brother who was interested in philosophy and speculative questions. He did a lot of conservation work, a lot of very fine charity work around new thinking in society. And I had known that he was interested in the UFO phenomenon, not from a personal standpoint, but when you have a surname like Rockefeller and you are very well appointed financially and you have a sense of civic consciousness, which he did, then you have some doors you can open up. So I get a call from there we are. That's the meeting that if you could look at that, that's a meeting that he assembled at his ranch. I'm in the middle. I look like I'm 12 years old.
I know.
I'm in the middle. I was back in the 6th grade when I'm in that. I'm kidding, but I was probably the youngest one at that conference, which he'd invited. So he's called me. His secretary said, "Would you be willing to talk with Lawrence Rockefeller?" And I didn't quite get the point. And I said, "Well, yes. When would you like to arrange that?" She said, "He's on the phone now." I said, "Oh, you're asking, will I talk with him?" "Oh, sure." I almost thought it was. I almost thought it was a joke. And he came through, and he had a wonderful New England Northeast accent. But you could call it a patrician accent, a well-educated. He said, I'll try just a little bit to give you a sense. He said, "Mr. Thompson, why, this is Lawrence Rockefeller. I'm sitting here with your book, Angels and Aliens. And you take a very big view of this phenomenon, don't you?" And I said, "What an introduction." I said, "Well, Mr. Rockefeller, thank you. Please call me Keith." And he said, "Well, then you call me Lawrence, and we'll have all the formalities resolved." It was like I was talking with someone out of On Golden Pond or Spencer Tracy, the
40s star. 40s.
The education came through. And so he told me, we talked about my book and what appealed to him about it. And I said, yes, I take a big picture view. I take a view that this is connected to a whole lot of questions that relate to the paranormal, to ultimately spiritual questions, and the question of consciousness. What is the nature? He said, exactly. What is the importance of consciousness? It's our most basic fact of life, is that we are aware, that we're here. I know that I'm having I'm conscious of this conversation, but we never understand what we're even talking about the fact that we're conscious. I said, bingo. So in any case, he said, I'm assembling a conference that's a bit more practical than everything we just started talking about. He said, I see that President Clinton and his wife, Mrs. Clinton, are interested in this UFO thing, and they have asked questions about it. So I think their administration is young. I'm going to try to extend an initiative to encourage the president and his administration to help advance the ball on disclosure and greater transparency. And I'm wondering if you would join us in that effort.
When you were talking with him on the phone, were you doing a little dance, like the happy dance? Like, wow, like you can finally get some information to the powers that be at the time. I was blown away.
He asked if I would be willing to be part of this endeavor, and I almost thought of saying, no, I'm busy all that week, but keep me posted. No, I didn't say that. Yep. I've got to do my laundry that week. I've got to get my car tires.
I think I'm getting a haircut.
Yeah, in my case, that's not a problem anymore.
Okay, in your case, beer trip. How you go?
Oh,
so he said, he said, we're going to meet at my family ranch in Wyoming. I'm going to have someone be in touch with you. But he did say this. He said, I would like you to come out a few days early, if you would, to meet with me privately, and let's talk about some of these bigger issues before we talk about before we talk about the initiative that we're going to begin with Clinton. And basically what he wanted to do, he didn't want to resolve the entire UFO phenomenon from the metaphysical standpoint, although he was very interested in those topics, which is, I think, what my work represented. He wanted to sort of, dig into my brain about that. But he really wanted to go to Clinton and try to get the ball rolling on greater disclosure. So the long and short of it, I went to Wyoming, met with and among some of the best people in the field, names that you would probably know. John Mack was there from Harvard, Linda Moulton Howe, the journalist who covered many aspects of this, Stephen Greer, the researcher on the disclosure issue, and others. So we spent about 3 or 4 days together, and the decision was made, let's focus on the Roswell case. Let's try to get Clinton to disclose. So to keep this very brief, an initiative was made to the president's science advisor, who was actually quite receptive. He said, I have no idea about this subject, so I'm actually quite interested too. I'm glad you're pushing us. So he opened an investigation, got the DOD, he began to send the signal to the bureaucracy that we want answers. So there came back a response that in many respects was not surprising. We have looked into the question of whether there was anything other than what the government says, and there was no evidence of aliens, no evidence that it was a spacecraft. So there's no reason to challenge the government's account. Well, that was a disappointing response, not entirely surprising. Rockefeller took it in good stead because he knew that he was playing a long game with this. This was the first initiative. But I'll tell you something interesting about what happened there. After the government said, there's no there, there's nothing here, thank you. And Rockefeller said, well, thank you. I'm going to continue my inquiries, and perhaps we'll have occasion to talk again and work together. Thank you for your time, and so forth. He was a true gentleman in that regard, but he made it clear that he was in it for the long game. And then within a short period of time, we came to understand that after his inquiry, after Rockefeller had started this ball rolling, a vast amount of information for up to 2 years prior to the Roswell incident and several years after, the records were suddenly missing altogether. All the records at all. It was a big open zero, including 2 years before. So they wiped the records clean. Now, when I say that, does that mean it was a flying saucer? No. It's clear that something extraordinary crashed in the desert of Roswell in 1947. There's one solid case that can be made that it was an extraterrestrial craft and the aliens were recovered, dead aliens, and live ones. There's another argument that says it was a craft, one of our craft or a Soviet craft, but something crashed and the government made a great effort to collect all the pieces.
Right. I know we really kind of might never know what to actually believe. Langley, speaking of transparency, we have many things flying in our skies. Do we even have an Air Force? Does anyone see or heard from them? Has anyone seen or heard from them? Yeah, my daughter was in the Air Force. Yes. But they do see a lot of things, but they're told again not to say, no, because they would admit that they do not control the skies over the USA. Oh, well, okay. How good can you really control the skies? I mean, they say that there's little tiny, little teeny balls that are following our crafts, so
right.
Surveillance things. I mean, these things are picked up because there's cameras everywhere now. So it's a lot more things are caught on tape. However, it is tough because you have all this technology that China's doing, that Russia's doing, that all these other countries are doing that we don't know about, and we don't know what their ships look like. We don't know what shapes that they're doing now, and what if they are coming up? What if they're spying on us? That could be it. You know what I mean? There's a million questions, until you actually have that thing physically in hand. Find out the person that was flying that thing, you won't know.
Yeah. Again, it's about having an open mind. If you believe that they're there, then they're there. If you don't believe, yeah.
Well,
Then
there's
they're
a
still
difference
gonna be there. You
between
don't believe them.
there's a difference between what's observed and what's interpreted. There are
Yes.
clear observations. There's evidence for something going on. The evidence is clear, but then interpretations vary. And so people often say, "Oh, you did a book about UFOs, then you believe that aliens have come in spacecraft." No, no, wait a minute. I'm saying I'm covering the unidentified flying objects. One interpretation is that it could be aliens and flying saucers. This is why it's not an easy subject. It's not a subject for people who are bound and determined to have black and white answers. This is pushing us beyond black and white.
Open.
It's beyond mind and body. I mean, the idea in Western philosophy, Western science is mind and body are completely separate categories. My mind can't influence your mind across distance. Unless you're in the same room and you see me, then you'll have sensory input. My presence can influence your presence. But if you're across town, my mind can't influence your mind, except I can read your thoughts. I know what you're feeling. Let's say, I'm not saying I have that. In other words, there are mind-to-mind communications. I mean, the scientific evidence at this point now for the paranormal is very well established, precisely because the best researchers in paranormal research, I could recommend a couple for your show sometime, have done high-quality research. They've tried so hard to establish this. They've made sure that it's almost the gold standard. Paranormal researchers use gold standard methods because they know that they're going to be held to a higher standard than any other science. So they turn in results that are better than, and the best response they get from the scientific establishment, well, you seem to have some provocative findings. There does seem to be a signal amidst the noise, but we don't know the mechanism. We can't explain how it happens. So therefore, we will continue to not be interested in the fact that it does happen.
Yeah.
That's why I have apparitions walking that are, black. Apparitions walking, that's totally void of heat. So those are spirits, right? To me, that's, 100% definitive proof on top of the millions of EVPs I have and everything else. But, it's just, it's what you get, but then someone can always say something about it, and it's all right, but it's not a person, because if a person's walking there, and you look at my hand in front of the camera, that's bright orange and red, you know what I mean? It's heat, right? A spirit doesn't have any heat, so therefore they are dark purple or black, and there's those entities walking with no heat whatsoever. So you tell me. All right, you tell me. But that's the same thing. People will see UFOs and they try to get their cameras out. But again, you're grabbing your camera and you're looking and you're like, oh my God. So you're looking like this. The camera, it's like you're not paying attention to the camera because you're too busy looking. So that's why you never get a good picture of these ships and things that are, coming in that you see when people post. Oh, I saw
it's
UFO.
also possible. It's also, in addition to that reason why we don't get good pictures, because of the sheer nervousness. It's also, by the way, there are some pretty strong indications that there are classified satellite photos and there are classified air fighter photos. The pilots of these F-18s get some very good photographs, but they are immediately classified. And there's often the threat of what happens if you. This is why the effort is being made to try to declassify more of this information. But another reason photos may be difficult to get sometimes is because this appears to be a phenomenon that has more mastery of beyond time and space. It comes into time and space, but it may be from more than time and space. It has more dimensions than we can register in our technology. So again, that makes it a phenomenon that is easy to dismiss by, again, the agents of official culture. There's one in particular, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, who is very often at he's called out to speak to UFO cases, and he will be the first to admit, he says, oh, I don't pay much attention to this. I don't follow the data. I haven't burrowed down into it, but I can tell you why it's nonsense. Well, he's just told me right there that I have no reason to listen to him. Because he makes a point of saying, I haven't burrowed down into the nonsense, but I know that it's nonsense. That would be like me coming to one of his conferences in astrophysics. He says, I haven't burrowed down into the data of astrophysics, but I want to be a keynote speaker at your conference. Well, you don't know anything about astrophysics, but you have opinions. Well, you don't know anything about UFOs, but you wave them away. See, that's what I'm talking about. These standards that these debunkers are held to are pitiful. They don't even have to admit that they're familiar. They don't have to familiarize themselves with the data. So I don't lose sleep over them. I just think they're kind of clownish, as they're not real skeptics. They're debunkers. A true skeptic says, "Oh, remarkable claims. Show me the evidence.
Exactly.
Let's
What did
find out
you?
about it."
What's the scientific method that you use? Can you duplicate it? Can you do it again? You know, like what was this? Where was the sun? Where are the shadows? Where, is things like all everything? That's the scientific method. It's like question, 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 and if you can duplicate it, can you get the same results again? Well, with the UFO, maybe not. You know what I mean? And with the spirit coming into a room, maybe not. However, you can still try to duplicate it to see if that it's something that it's not what we're claiming it is, so you can disprove it that way. Like if it does happen again and it's like, oh, well, maybe, all right, is this something squeaking and it sounds like a voice? Is this something creaking? Or is this something, some kind of a light that randomly flashes and it's reflecting off of something, and that's what people are picking up, because you do have all those lights that go in the skies, and the people that do let those balloons go up into the sky, and everyone thinks, oh, those are aliens. It's like, no, they're not. They're those little fire balloons things, they're flying up. Can't stand that people let up there, but it's neither here nor there. But I mean, there's a lot of things that are in the sky that we don't know, and like I said, there's all this technology, who knows what kind of a craft we are building, and where do we get the technology to build these crafts?
Yeah. There are a couple of comments that I want to point out in the chat room. So Lisa, again, hello, Miss Hotel. I had an uncle stationed at one of the IBM middle sites during the Cold War. He adamantly said they experienced UFOs. He was a hardline, no-nonsense Christian, not flighty at all.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have Langley. Welcome to the craziness. My cousin did radar in North Dakota after Vietnam. He caught me reading his books one day. He talked, and I got a first person stuff. And then
Wow, what a great
I'd love
experience.
to know how the silent craft. I'd love to know, how the silent craft I have seen fly.
Yeah,
Well, I'm not your guy to explain how they fly, but you're asking all the right questions. You're describing observations. And you're hold to the question. Let that be a strong desire to want to know that, and it may not lead to ultimate answers. As for the person who said that they were reading their uncle's books and then they had first-person conversations, that's a marvelous thing that the uncle didn't say, oh, put that down. That's all nonsense. I don't know the full story, but all of those comments that indicated. Some openness to looking past,
to learn, look into.
Yeah.
It's questions. It is a good thing to ask questions. I hate when people say, stop asking questions. It's like, no, how are we going to learn if you don't ask questions?
And what gets me is the ones that go, I have a stupid question. There have no such thing as a stupid question, except for maybe the one you didn't ask, because there's a bunch of people around you wanting to ask the same question, but they're too afraid to.
The teacher once told me there are no stupid questions. She had heard a few stupid answers, but there were no stupid. And even then, she said that with a laugh, because a good faith answer might be misinformed, but it's not stupid. The word stupid should be. We need to be very careful about using the word stupid, but it's in terms of these kinds of things, because they can be profoundly inhibiting. They discourage people from asking questions, and I'm trying to encourage more questions. Living with questions. They don't have to have answers. Living with questions will often change the questions, and will often open. We talk about doorways. There's a door. There's what we don't know, and there's what we do know, and then there's doors between those two.
Right.
And a house has many rooms with many doors.
Yeah. If you write these questions down, because we get 9 million questions go through our heads every day. Well, at least mine. Because I see my brain's like a filing cabinet, and all the drawers are wide open. And there's always something going on. All right. But I'm always asking questions. But it's like I'll have to write them down. If I can't write them down, I'll make a a note on my phone, I'll talk it, I'll speak it, so it's like, so I can come back to it later. But when you write these things down, and then all of a sudden you can go back and look at it and say, oh, well, you know what? I just read this book and that's the answer to that, So now it's like you're putting these questions out into the universe and then you'll get your answers. You will get your answers. I swear it.
Yep. I like this Langley saw their first in 1961. And been at it since then.
That's awesome.
It's a long time.
That is
I'm
awesome.
going to have to say it's a long time because that's the year I was born. That's a long time.
You've been at it as in inquiring and
asking questions and
paying attention. I've been paying attention since 1961. That's a heck of an account of a life, right there. Does anybody on their proverbial deathbed? So I wish I'd paid less attention to things. I wish I paid less attention. I wish I paid attention to everything. No, everybody says, I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd followed my hunches. Nobody, like somebody said, do you think Elon Musk needs any more houses? I said, what do you mean? And then what they said was, at the end of a rich person's life, if they happen to own 20 houses, they're probably not going to say they wish they had 21. They're probably going to say they wish they spent more time in maybe one of those houses with people they really cared about. In other words, so these questions
might not want to donate $45 million a month to a certain campaign. He might say that on his deathbed. But that's my bad. Sorry. But
yeah, he's a philanthropist like Lawrence Rockefeller. And by the way, Elon Musk has been asked. He says, you've got SpaceX out there. What's going on with the UFO phenomenon? He says, I have no evidence of it. I'm open to evidence. Bring me evidence. So then it is assumed by the conspiracy side of the phenomenon. Oh, Musk is in on the cover-up. Well, maybe he's not in on the cover-up. Maybe he's not. He hasn't seen the evidence you think should be there. I don't know. I don't tend to get caught in the big personalities of the phenomena, those kind of debates, but it's assumed that Elon Musk had the evidence because he's pretending that he doesn't know, supposedly.
Yeah. And again, we probably won't know that. There'll be a tell-all book
eventually
that will come out. But okay, here's a question. Did we go to the moon? Did they walk on the moon?
Oh yeah, that's a good one, because I have a friend who believes that it was a hoax.
It's not even possible that the UFO phenomenon is extraterrestrial. I want to really emphasize that we don't know that it's really coming from outer space. It's coming from other dimensions. So, but I'll just say, for the sake of I think we went to outer space. We went to the moon. And I have not looked deeply. I have not looked deeply into the arc. I know that it's staged on a back screen in Hollywood, back set in Hollywood, all of it. I'm open to conspiracy theories, but I'm not a conspiracist in the sense that I don't start with the idea that I would prefer everything to be a conspiracy, whereas some people really do. There are some people who see reality in terms of concentric conspiratorial circles, and they don't do very well ultimately, in my observation. You can get led down some very dark corners. And yes, there are real conspiracies. I don't think we don't have the full story of the Kennedy assassination, maybe either one of them. I don't want to go down they're like rabbit holes, but I'm open. I'm open to the fact that sometimes people conspire behind the scenes to do bad stuff. That's why we have conspiracy laws, definitions, what counts for criminal conspiracy. It's acknowledged. But every time people might collaborate on an outcome, doesn't make it a conspiracy, just means like-minded people have the same goal.
You're right.
In any case, I don't go down the conspiracy route by and large. I'm open to there being real conspiracies. And certainly on the UFO phenomenon, we've not gotten the truth. We've been told that the government has no interest. Now they've come forward, like, remember Emily Latella on the character on Saturday Night Live that played by Rosanna Dana?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I was Regina Dana.
Rosanna Dana, played by, Gilda Radner. So Rosanna Dana would give a 60-second report on a topic. and she would get one major concept wrong, you know, and
Yep.
Chevy Chase her, and he would say, that was this. It wasn't that. In other words, he would correct her.
And they go,
she would look at the camera, or she'd say, never mind.
Yep.
And that was the end of, after
Yep.
60 sec, after a 60-second radio essay or TV essay, she simply corrected herself by saying, never mind. Well, that's
Yep.
like the government finally admitting that they've been studying UFOs after all. Never mind. No, but you can keep believing us on everything else. You can keep believing. No, well, wait a minute. You've just admitted yourself. You've just outed yourself as a liar. You've lost your credibility. And that's why when people say they want the government to come clean, I often say, you want the people who have been telling lies to now prove that they're. Why would you believe them if they're coming clean? They have a history of being liars.
Yep.
But that's the thing, you know, you don't really know. Are we getting the full truth? Because then you get it in little tidbits and little tidbits. Well, we don't believe this and that never happened, but this happened. But this happened. Then a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's like these little breadcrumbs, you know, that they put out there. But then there's stories like that you wrote about, like your Mississippi boys here.
Right.
You know,
let me just let me give you an overview of that. That could be a 2-hour conversation in and of itself. But I'm going to use discipline now. And two guys, Mississippi homeboys, Pascagoula. You don't get much further south than Pascagoula. If you are, you're in the Gulf of Mexico. That's how far south it is. Okay, so these boys went out fishing one night on a secluded dock. As they cast their lines, Calvin Parker, one of them, younger than Charlie Hickson at the time, family friends, noticed the blue lights flashing on the water. And he said to his friend Charlie, well, you're fixing to get us arrested. I told you this was no trespassing. The police are here. Look at that blue light. Well, they turned around and it wasn't the police. It was a spaceship, a craft, whatever you want to call it. A non-ordinary craft was settling down, flashing a blue light, landing and hovering above the weeds. Then two legs, the legs come out. The door unseals like something they'd never seen. Out came two bulky characters that did not fit the central casting of the little gray aliens. These were big, bulky, monstrous-looking guys who moved across the ground without touching the ground, and picked up these guys, took them in the craft, conducted medical experimentation on them of some kind, even seemed to have what was later found to be technology that was not widespread. It was a CT scan. So an electronic scan came out of the wall and scanned the whole body up and down and stuck their fingers down their throat. I mean, just, bizarre stuff. Here's what made it an interesting story. The creatures put them back. They said, it is not our aim to hurt you. And Calvin says he remembered communicating back to that alien. Well, it's a little late for that. You put your fingers on my throat. But they put him back on the ground, and they turned around, watched the spaceship, the door seal up again, and it disappeared. The older guy.
Your friend going.
Now what are they going to do? Charlie says, well, Calvin, we got to sit here a minute, decide what we're going to do. And Calvin, about 20 years younger, said, there is nothing we're going to do but go home, go to sleep, and go to work tomorrow. I've just got this job, and there's nothing that we would tell anybody about what we've just been through that would help us keep our job. No one will believe this. And they were both terrorized. Don't get me wrong. But one of them said, let's tell the world because this could be an invasion. And the younger one said, let's keep it to ourselves because this will not turn out well if we become associated. He already had seen through what would happen. Well, Charlie won out and went to a payphone, called the police, finally the police, and the police said, you want to report what? The aliens, huh? They go aboard their craft. Okay, come on in. And they were already giggling, brought them in, spent the whole night, separated them in separate rooms, did good police work, interviewed them over and over and over, getting the details, trying to break the story. This did not really happen, did it? And by the way, boys, if this didn't happen and you're using our resources, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when we find out this didn't happen. Well, They were both exhausted. They were both terrorized, but by what they'd been through. So here's what the police decided to do. The sheriff, a man named Sheriff Diamond, said, boys, we'll put you in this room together for a change. You get you some coffee if you want. I'm going to be right back. And they said, what do you mean? We're going to stay here all night? No, I've already talked with this guy. He's my friend. Just stay here a few minutes. What they didn't know was that Sheriff Diamond had turned a voice-activated tape recorder on in the drawer on the table they were sitting at. And his goal, of course, was to find out that these two guys would say things like, well, we're really pulling the wool over their eyes, right? We got it going. We'll get us a Hollywood movie before this is all over.
Yeah.
That isn't what the sheriff heard. The sheriff came in, got the tape recorder, and the boy said, what was that? And he said, well, never mind. He took it to another room and listened to it. He heard these men talking in terror about what had happened. And they were in tears. They were in trauma. One of them said, I need a drink. The other said, I'll need sleeping pills. My life will never be the same. Nobody will believe this. I wouldn't believe it either. Why would this happen to us? The sheriff later told the news media when he turned on this issue. I mean, he said, that was the turning point for me. These men, if they were liars, if they were actors, they belong in Hollywood. They deserve the Hollywood contract. But these men, and Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who I mentioned before, the Air Force consultant, he flew into Pascagoula. He met with him, and he said, these men are reporting real experience. What the origin of this was, where this craft came from, alleged craft, I don't know, extraterrestrial, other dimensions. He admitted that reality may be filled with things we don't understand, but these men do not appear to be lying. And they live with this for the rest of their lives. And finally, so I went down to Pascagoula to get to spend some time with the last survivor. He's in his 70s at the time, Calvin Parker. He was suffering from cancer, but he was able to show me the location where the landing had happened. And we talked at depth. And he'd come to the point where he said, at this point, I understand the debunkers. I understand how they think. I understand non-believers. Until it has happened to you, you don't believe it. I don't know what happened to me that night and Charlie, but I do know something very strange happened. Something happened. That's all I know. So he was a very good example for me of how a poorly educated, non-sophisticated country boy from South Mississippi didn't need to have the answers. All he needed to know was the truth that he had experienced. And that's why I featured him so prominently at the end of the book.
Right. So look at, here's the book. So you got angels and aliens, and then leaving the left obviously would be part of your political employ there. Now, the UFO Paradox, all right, that's the book that we're talking about. You got to get it. That was a really good story. You know, it was a good read to read about them.
Well, the book is available. The book is available now, both as a print book, paperback, and as an ebook. Unfortunately, the narration, the audiobook isn't ready yet. We really tried to do it. I was pleased to be asked to be the narrator. There's nothing quite like going into a studio. Those of you who don't know, you listen. Many people listen to audiobooks now, right? You like to listen to it while you're walking and cleaning the house, and you're on an airplane. You listen to an 8-hour book. You don't know that it took 20 hours or 24 hours of time to really record it. You've got to re-record it. You get words wrong. So I learned funny thing is, I wrote the book. I didn't really know what was in it until I spent hours reading my own book as the narrator.
Yep, I know. Boy, do I know. It takes me sometimes several takes to do just my little you know, like I will get through a whole page of something, and then I'll mispronounce a word or something, and I'll be like, God.
I mean, here's that video the new video, the opening for our show. She sent me 3 or 4 versions of it before I finally went, well, that was thumbs up. She said, yes. I said, okay, fine.
What was the graphics I was putting in there? I was trying
I liked it. I got it. I saw it before I came on because I saw you'd send it to us, and I really liked it. It's good work. So I know how hard it is to do those, because if you don't have editing equipment, then you have to sometimes start from scratch for the entire You got to start from the top sometimes.
Okay.
Whereas good
Oh,
with
yeah.
good editing equipment, you can be in a studio and say, Keith, I only need you to read that one sentence again. You don't have to do the whole page. Do the top of page 84. Just do the opening sentence, and I'll splice it together so that it sounds continuous.
Wow, we need to do
I
that.
could do that. However, my inflections are not the same. It's not it just never is the same. So it's like, for me, it's a bio. So I'm doing a bio. I'll do it again, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just, you know, it's okay.
If Gina's not happy with her own work, she's her own worst critic. How many times she'll be like, okay, look, this is the opening video, or this is the new. I mean, like, ooh, I like it. And then she goes, I don't like it. Let me do it again. Darling, I love you. Now, please. But she enjoys doing it. So, I mean, I'm not going to stop her. She's great at it.
But I want to go a little off topic here, though, right? So that all that video stuff aside, go back, way back, like the Egyptians and in the hieroglyphics, and where they're putting spaceships in their hieroglyphics and everything else. So now, to me, growing up, I never thought really that it was extraterrestrials. I always thought it was us going back in time to help them to go forward, you know. And I've always had this in my head, always, and I don't know why.
There's a researcher whose books I can't name by title, but I do know he has a theory called the extratempestrial, which has to do with, it comes down to time travel. His name is Dr. Mike Masters. He's a very thoughtful scholar at the University of either Montana or Wyoming, one of those very cold states in the winter. And Michael Masters, if you're interested in that angle, he has some very well-developed idea that these aliens may be us coming back in another form from the future using time travel technology to understand who we are or who we were.
Yeah,
and so
I mean,
he makes a pretty good case.
it's already proven, okay, like all our physics that we've already said, this is the law of physics. And now they're finding that when they're working with space and outer space and trying to measure distances between planets and galaxies and things, and things aren't measuring up. It's not adding up, that the math is wrong, that, you know, those types of things are wrong. But there's already, I mean, the quantum theories are already there. The quantum physics are already there. They've already done testings with these things. I think I don't know if I saw it on TV or if I read it or something, that they actually took an apple and transported it to another place in the room already. You know, so like, here we go. This is Star Trek, you know, with your beam me up, Scotty thing, the device, you know, and it's like, okay, so again, now we're going to be leaping. That big gap that we were talking about earlier, you know, like between the technology is going to go from here to here, you know, quickly. And it's just, yeah, The Fly. She's just The Fly. That movie freaked me out. But, you know, I just always said, like, there's like a slingshot type thing. And it's like, we've done this and we've gone back to help them because they needed it, because we couldn't be at a certain spot here if we didn't help them back there. And, you know, or we averted something that, you know, so I don't know if that's part of these big gaps or what. I don't know. Again, like I said, this brain, it's like sometimes I have to just tell it to shut up. Like, just stop, you know, because it's why I have to write all these things down. It's like I have so many millions of questions, like, well, what if this, and what if that, and what if this, you know? I just don't know. But I mean, I know that the iconography is there. I know that the things are on there. But if it's extraterrestrials, you know, like, I don't know. I believe in the starseed things, you know, like just the particles coming from other comets, from other planets, when they come through our atmosphere and they're thrown into our ponds, our lakes, our oceans, and that can spawn life. Okay, another thing, the octopus. The octopus, they said that DNA doesn't resemble anything, you know, really, right, from our planet, right? So like all these things, it's like, well, if that isn't something that's here naturally, then what's your alternatives? Mm-hmm. You know, well, was it something like that? Was it a comet? Was it an asteroid? Was it something that just formed into this life form?
Well, the interpretations can be endless. You're exactly right. The mind is a genius, has genius for giving us storytelling, and I'm all for storytelling. And then there's also just the importance of remembering the emphasis needs to be on what people experience. And in my view, what's important is to help make that okay. I'm not a counselor, but what I'm trying to do partly with my book is to normalize aspects of reality that have been declared off limits by professionals who subscribe to a particular mechanistic, materialistic view of reality that just does not deal fully with consciousness and the implications of intentionality, mind, the power of mind to manifest. The line between the mind and matter, the mental and the physical, is a permeable line. We know that from synchronicities, right? Those moments in time when the telephone rings and you've been thinking for the past hour about an old friend from high school that you hadn't had any contact with for 20 years, and you go pick up the phone and it's that friend from high school. So Keith, I've been thinking about you. Now, officially, that's nothing but a coincidence. Nothing but a coincidence in the materialist world. A lucky guess. It's not relevant. It's not meaningful, except it's meaningful to you. Well, Dr. Carl Jung said it's meaningful because the mental and the physical line up sometimes, which suggests that the material world is conscious. The material world shares in consciousness, which makes it possible for these events to be coming from anywhere, including from what are called the Akashic records, the entire collective history of our consciousness, and all conscious experience would be stored in that realm. So we have access to everything at all times. It's a maddening fact of life.
It really is. Like, oh, like, what's up going on here?
It makes it hard to get through the to-do list. It makes it hard to get through the to-do list on a given day when you know that you're connected with it.
It does. No, was it Paraguay for this? These kids that drew these pictures. You have a
chapter on Zimbabwe, Africa.
Zimbabwe. Yep. And I mean, these are cool pictures. The kids drew these pictures of a experience that they had. So the book is full of a lot of different scenarios, different stories, definitely things that will make you question quite a bit. What do we got? Oh, we have 15 minutes left. See, I told you this time was going to fly. You have wonderful charts in here too. This chart on extraordinary capacities in everyday life. You know,
that's the one where I mentioned the telephone rings, and you know, you can many of our listeners and viewers know that there are it's sort of just a sort of cross reference. There are times when you experience the presence of someone who is dead and a member of the family, and other members of the family feel the presence as well, and they might live in another state. And if they share that with each other, and of course deathbed visitations. I was with I had that myself when my mother passed away after my near-death experience. Maybe it was because that experience just diminished it altered my understanding of the line between death and life. So when I was with my mother, I felt what I now know from having read about it. I felt the presence of persons. I felt presence. I felt personified presence. I felt people. And I'm pretty sure that it was consistent with the idea that her relatives were friends and relatives were coming to take her. Very often when a person is still conscious, my mother was actually unconscious, but very, very often the dying person will suddenly be filled with light and love and say, "Oh, mother's come. Mother's come for me. Mother's."
You'll see such clarity at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
So the line between life and death ain't what we think it is.
Nope.
No, it's not. That's why I do what I do. That's why she does what she does. That's why you know.
That's what I do with words, ideas.
Yes. Like my grandfather came and talked to me when I was a little kid. You know, he died the night before, and he appeared to me, and he was a little short Italian man, and he stuttered, and he said to me, and he's like standing there, he says, They grabbing my feet. They grabbing my feet. They grabbing my feet. And I get up in the morning and I tell my mom, who's sitting at the kitchen table crying, and I said, Grandpa was in my room telling me that someone was grabbing his feet. I'm like, what is that all about? And then she really started crying, and she's like, oh my God, where did you hear that? I said, Grandpa, I just told you. You know, he was sitting there and he said, they're grabbing my feet and they're grabbing my feet, and he's doing this, you know, and that's how he talked. He always did this, you know, especially when he wanted to make a point. But we, as children, there was a ton of us Italian, you know, cousins, and we weren't allowed to go to the house. And my grandfather was in hospice at the house, and he said that there were gremlins at the foot of his bed grabbing his blankets and grabbing his feet to the adults, and he had passed away the night before. So there's no way I would have heard that from anybody, because he said that night before, you know, and then it was just like it. And I could see him still, like clear as day, you know. Yeah. And my grandmother, then when she passed, she came to the foot of my bed too. I'm like, what is it with my bed, you know? But I could see her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear anything. So I don't know what she was saying.
Yeah, we have a commenter from Sharon Phillips.
Yeah. So,
shall I read it? It says, yeah, you see them lighten up and almost be themselves at that time, and then the next day they take a bad turn. I know exactly that's right. And I know that when my mother was comatose, at that point, she was partly on morphine and nearing the end. I was the one of my family that was just right there. And I was literally had made a little place for her, myself next to her on her hospital or her hospice bed. And I just spent time knowing that the last faculty to go would be her hearing. I learned that from the hospice people, who gave me a little bit of instruction about to remember that they may seem to be absent, but they're hearing everything. They're very present for everything. And so I would just talk to her. I said, Mom, here's the main thing I wanted my mom to know. She had 4 sons. We were all there, not in the room at the time, but I was assuring her, I said, believe it or not, Mom, we're all doing okay. Even George. That's just a little family joke. And
you could tell.
But I said, we're all doing well. You've done a good job. This is your time now. In fact, I would say that, having read the hospice literature, when I was sitting there by her, I spent time reading the hospice literature, educating myself. And one thing they say was, when you need to leave the room, you know, as a member of the family, to go to the restroom, take a walk, get a coffee. He said, just tell the person, I've got to step out, Mom, but I'll be back. And the purpose for telling them that is, first of all, it's a polite thing to do, right? When someone is living, you say, excuse me. And when they're dying, you say, excuse me, I'll be back. But another reason that's done is because maybe that person wants to die alone. They want to die in private. They don't want you there necessarily, but they appreciate that you. So every time I left the room, I was aware that I might come back to find my mother no longer alive. But no, she actually died while I was sitting there and saying those things to her and wishing her well on the incredible journey ahead.
Yeah.
I lost my dad last year. We have a big event in May, and so we had the big event, and then after that I lost my dad, and he went really fast, but he died when we were all in the room. It's like we were all there in the morning, but kind of into different intervals, and then we were all going to lunch and then we're coming back. So then we were all there, and that's when he passed. Now this year I lost my mom right before my event, and it was tough because I didn't make it up there, because I'm in Pennsylvania and they're in Massachusetts, so I couldn't. I was driving, but I didn't make it in time, you know, to see my mom pass. But like, she knew I was on the way, you know, like I talked to her on the phone. They were holding the phone to her ear, and I'm like, I'm coming. I was I was in traffic so bad, and I was just like, come on, you know, I really could have walked through Connecticut faster than I was driving through it. You know, I'm just like, I gotta get there. I'm like, come on, what is wrong? Why can't I get there? You know, but I don't know. I just have to say, well, it wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know.
Here's someone, Lang Lee. Shall I read this to him?
Yeah,
sure.
This is Lang Lee says, my aunt is like that now. argues with my grandfather, her father. For seconds she's here, then she's gone again. She's 93.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh
you
boy,
know
that's
what?
why.
You're glad to
Yeah.
have her.
Enjoy those moments, because who knows how long they'll last. I know that when my mom was close to her end, I called, and my brother was there because different province. I'm in Canada, and I said, "Okay, put the phone next to mother's ear." And it was the night before my birthday, and I said, "Mom, you know I love you, and you know I suck at remembering dates. So do me a favor and leave tomorrow, so that I'll never forget the day. And then it's fine. It's finally time to let go. Stop fighting for us. We're, And the next morning at 7:30 in the morning, my brother called me up and goes, "Your mother listened to you." And it took me a couple of seconds to understand what he was saying. I said, first thing came out of my mouth is, "Well, so much for a private conversation between mother and daughter, eh? Thank you." Because he had it on speakerphone, but that was where I went. But they kind of wait for you to, like you said, either leave the room, or Gina's mom kept her at bay so that she wouldn't see, because knowing Gina, she would have been there glued to mom's side, and that's not what mom wanted you to remember, not that part of her.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So sad.
Well, we've covered a lot of territory.
We
Yeah.
really did.
Well,
I told you.
that's what's great about this show is we don't we have an idea, we have a guest.
Sharon Phillips is back, and she says, "Did you ever notice they regress to their teenage years and curse and swear? LOL." Well, I'll be honest. I can say this. My mom did that before she was dying. Sometimes my mother in middle age was like a teenage girl, swearing and cussing. But that's a different story.
Hey, I might resemble that remark.
Yeah, but I don't hold it against you. Remember, I'm building castles.
Oh my God!
But there is a way that people who are dying do regress. They start to relive. Everything is available. It's a little bit like the life review in the near-death experience. I think there's a life review in the process of leaving, and that's part of what helps determine the next assignment. If you believe in reincarnation, or you believe in a one life, one heaven situation, I think they're both probably true in ways that we don't understand. I think if you believe in reincarnation, that may be what happens to you. It may be that fluid, belief. And we may be reincarnated and hang out in places that feel like heaven. Who knows what the afterlife is like? How we live this life will probably help shape it.
Another whole 2-hour show.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's take this last few minutes here, because we have 5 minutes left. All right, sum up the book, and why people should get this. Can you do that in 5 minutes?
Well, I won't try to sum it up, obviously, in terms of content, but if I could sort of say what the big picture is. I wrote this book having been following this phenomenon for a long time. And I kind of felt, now that the government's Office of Investigation in the Pentagon had been revealed, I figured there would be people coming to the phenomenon new, who would be intelligent, skeptical, open-minded at the same time, who would say, maybe I'm now ready to read a UFO book. I wasn't ready to read Shirley MacLaine Out on the Limb, those kind of books. I didn't want to read a new, I did. Some people will say I wouldn't want to read a new agey book about UFOs. So I get that. I'm open to quote new age ideas, but I don't ask anyone to, I put those words in quotes because, some people have really negative connotations, but I didn't want to write that kind of book. I wanted to write a book that was largely based on the historical stuff, but with real speculation, so that intelligent reader who was open to the possibility might pick it up and say, I wanted to write the kind of book I would want to read. So I said, maybe someone will walk into the bookstore like me and say, the UFO Paradox by Keith Thompson. Okay, here's his background, written from some mainstream newspapers and blah, 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 blah. I think I'll get this. And that's the kind of reader I wrote it for, who would be open to the complexity of it and be willing to suspend their disbelief. By that, I mean, okay, their orientation was, I don't believe this. I say, suspend that. That doesn't mean you need to believe anything either, but take the disbelief and suspend that. And if you go into it being a believer, suspend that, set it over there. Try to put aside your pre-existing biases for or against, and just read what one author says he has found. That's the way I wrote the book, kind of like a travel guide to this great mystery.
It makes sense.
Well said. Well said. And it is that. And I'm going to get the book. So I have the book in hand because I
put in there retail therapy.
I'm not a computer person. I don't like reading a book on a computer.
Yeah,
It's just not.
I don't either. I don't like reading a whole book on a computer. It's hard.
It is. It
It's
is.
hard on the eyes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I just like to have books. I love books. Can you
And
tell
for
it?
me, if I can't read the actual book, physical thing,
Yeah,
I have the PDF and I upload it on Kindle PDF and it does voice things. So I do both.
Right. So
Good.
again, now here you go. There's the 3 books that he does have available. So Angels and Aliens, Leaving the Left, and the UFO Paradox.
The other two are out of print. So if you are interested in the other two, one is a political book. It's not relevant for here, but I've written about lots of different things. I've written articles about all kinds of topics. I'm an investigative journalist, but the first 2 are not even available, but you can buy used copies. If you become the hugest fan of me, you want to buy my used books. I don't get paid for it because they're used, but the new book is available. The new book is available in print.
Yeah, on Amazon. I put the links into the chat room for anybody who wants to go and just follow the links. I put links into the chat room throughout the show, so go check them out.
Oh, please do, because there's so much. I mean, yes, we talked, organic conversation, basically. We were all
we only slightly touched the surface of everything.
Oh, what's in here? I mean, what's in here? And I did. I have like all these things highlighted and circled and everything. I didn't even get to them. All right. So I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Hands down.
Well, next time we'll have next time we'll do it. Hopefully we'll have coffee in front of us and we can sit down in a civilized way with no computers and just, hang out, chew the fat the way people have done it forever. Tell stories together.
Ever and ever. I would love that. That's amazing. That would be amazing because God, you've done so
across the border first, but okay.
Yeah, I know. She's up in Canada. We'll have to get her down here. But I mean, it was just it's so insightful. I thank you so much. I truly do. I do hope that people go get the UFO Paradox. I mean, it's new release this month, so it's like, yay, I finally get a book and it's out now, just out. Because we usually book our shows, so far in advance. And this is perfect.
And to remind those who are tuning in that if they go looking for the audiobook now, they won't find it. Unfortunately, it got delayed, but it's going to be out there in 10 days or so, or even 2 weeks. I wish it were now because I'm having people tell me on Twitter, is there an audiobook? I want to listen now. And I'm saying, please keep your interest.
Here's the thing, Keith, when it does come out on audiobook, shoot us a link and we will advertise the hee-haw end of it.
Beautiful. I'll let you know. I appreciate that because I'd become kind of an audiobook listener. I wasn't at the beginning back when they were called books on tape, but now I like to, on my exercise or when I'm driving. Still love to read books. I love
driving. That would be the only time that I would do a listen to book because I do my long treks. It takes me 6 hours to get to Massachusetts from here, so I would listen to a book then, and then the rest of it on the way back if it was longer, But for me, I like the experience. I want a book in my hand. but I do, again, I'm going to say thank you so very, very much. I think you're awesome. Hang with us for a minute. I'm just going to play an exit video. I'm going to say goodbye to all you lovely people. And we will not be here next week because I will be going to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. Yes, so we have a big event next weekend. So we'll be leaving Friday morning really early. So we'll be getting ready that night. So no show next week, but then we'll be back the week after. So thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mama. I love you so much.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure. Awesome. And buonanotte, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D. We are here every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you a variety of guests or our own intuitive oracle card reading shows. We are streaming live on Facebook on my personal page and our YouTube channel, The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, on Mama D's YouTube channel, Angel Meadows, as well as our audio-only venues. We hope you enjoyed our show and our guest, or your reading, and we would love it if you would go to our YouTube channel, The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, subscribe, share, and definitely hit that notification button to never miss a show. We'll see you all next